Okay, good morning. Good morning, listeners and learners and participants and partners in our endeavor to bring Mashiach through any means possible. One of the most successful means, at least according to or essential means, is learning Torah. That will bring Mashiach. So before that, let's give charity. It says the Torah alone is not enough. So let's give charity. Charity in Yisrael and Nigalim with tzedakah. The Jewish people were redeemed with charity. Mashiach is going to be a person just like Moses, but he's going to make bigger changes in the world. Moses made physical changes, and Mashiach will mostly make, how do you say, human changes in the world. The world, humanity will be at its best. Okay, so here we are. Let's go. All right, now we're learning in a sefer, a book which is called Likuti Torah. It's written by the first Rebbe of Chabad about 250 years ago. And we finished at the beginning of this week. Yesterday we finished. The first 3 days of the week we learned about the idea of transforming evil to good, transforming death to life. And that's the idea of Moses taking the copper snake, took a snake and put it up on a pole, and we explained exactly what connection that has to Judaism and why that's the essence of Judaism, to take the bad things in the world and to connect them to their source, to ignore the bad and to reveal the true source of everything is really God. And then that changes things. The bad suddenly becomes very good. So here we have, maybe we can take an example of this. At least that's up to now how it used to be, how bad transforms to good, is the United States of America. The United States of America ostensibly was built from courage, from defiance and courage. And the English government, the British government, whatever you want to call it, at that time it was very oppressive. It didn't allow freedom of religion. Mainly the main thing was religion. It didn't allow people to worship how they wanted to. And they wanted freedom of religion. They also didn't have freedom of expression. They couldn't bear arms. They couldn't this. All the freedoms which are guaranteed in the American Constitution, they had to fight for all of them. But when they did, it came out to be a very, very good thing. And now heroism is a very wonderful, praiseworthy thing. And heroism usually only comes in the face of evil, or whatever you call evil anyway. But that's what heroism. So we see that bad, as bad as it is, but it can arouse good, and it can even be transformed to good. So maybe that's a poor example, but maybe not. Maybe it's a good example to think about it. But it is an example in any case. And the Rebbe says, forget about the examples. The Rebbe is telling us that this world is a very terrible place, and especially because truth is hidden in this world, and egotism is rampant and encouraged in ourselves as well. The world is called the world of lies, but it's here for a purpose, and that purpose is that we should transform it. And that's like putting the snake on the pole. Okay, remember that's what we learned last week. All right, now we're going to learn something else. This week's Torah portion, that story we just learned about the copper snake, that comes later in the Torah portion. The main theme of our Torah portion, at least that's how it begins, is the red cow. The red cow. Para aduma tamima. The red, pure cow. So, there's a lot of mysteries in this, and the Torah assures us that that the red cow is one of the commandments which are totally, how do you want to call it, ridiculous. Makes no sense whatsoever. It's the opposite of sense, the Torah. But for several reasons, but we don't want to go into those reasons. Let's just go into one thing, the process by which this red cow is used. Okay, first of all, what is the purpose of the red cow? the Torah invents, God invents this thing called impurity. Torah impurity. What does it mean, Torah impurity? If you are in the same room as a dead person, you don't even know it, a dead Jew. If in the same room as a dead Jew, then you can never, the rest of your life, go into the Holy Temple. You're impure. You can know that you didn't do anything wrong. You sat there and you learned Torah. You did commandments. You're a wonderful person. And you're a holy person and everything. But if you are in the room with a dead person, or you touch a dead person, or in any case, you are impure, you can't go into the Holy Temple for the rest of your life. That's it. You can't go. But there is a cure. What's the cure? The red cow. What's the red cow? You have to look around Israel and find a cow that's totally red. All the hairs are red. All the hairs are red. It hasn't got one black hair, two black hairs. It's totally red. And also, it never worked. The cow never worked. It never had a burden on it. There are very, very exact laws relevant to this. In any case, once you find a red cow that complies with all of these criteria, then the cow is slaughtered and it's burned and it's reduced to ashes. And you take the ashes of the cow together with the ashes of the wood that you burned it with, and etc. And you put it in special water. And once this whole concoction is made, up to date, there's only been 9 of these cows have been found. Moshiach is going to find the 10th. But once this is found, then if a little bit of this water is sprinkled on a person that is impure, like that's been in a room with a dead person or touched a dead person, then that person becomes pure. But there's also a process how you have to sprinkle this water. Sprinkle this water. One of the main details is that you start counting. You count one. I'm counting now for my purity, right? I have been in a room where I've touched a dead person, a dead Jew. A dead person is even a non-Jew, touching. But as far as being in the same room, something with a Jew. Anyway, those are details, not important. I have become impure by being in a room or touching a dead person, right? I cannot go into the Holy Temple for the rest of my life. What's the cure? I go to the temple and I say, I've been impure and I want to become pure. And they sprinkle this water on me. The water is sprinkled. So they say, okay, ready? Start counting. 1 day, 2 days, 3. Day number 3, they sprinkle a little of this water on me. Now wait. Number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. On the 3rd day and on the 7th day, I sprinkle the water. And then there's other processes. You have to bring a sacrifice and you have to go to the mikvah. But in any case, the main thing is the 3rd day and the 7th that you're sprinkled with the water. Even a little bit of it touches you and you are pure. That's it. You can go back to the temple. You can go back to the temple until you touch another dead body, whatever. Okay, so in other words, this ashes of the red cow, it cures a person, cleans a person from the impurity of death. Huh? Okay, now what is death? Death is like really ugly. Death is a very ugly thing. It's a terrible thing, death, right? You have Uncle Joe or something, a fellow of infinite jest. You love him and he's just a wonderful person. And Uncle Joe dies, you got to put him in the ground. Why? Because if not, he starts to smell and it just becomes disfigured and flies. It's just awful. So you get rid of Uncle Joe. Got rid of him. Why? Because he died. He died. Death is like according to Judaism, death is the worst, the deepest level of impurity there can be. It's called the father of fathers of impurity. Terrible. Death is okay. Now, death is really an unnecessary thing. If Adam had not eaten from the tree, there would be no death in the world. People would live in this world eternally. I ask yourself that's going to be pretty boring, living in the world eternally. So the answer is the only reason that we think it would be boring is because there's death in the world. If there would not be death in the world, then we'd realize that there's nothing more interesting, enjoyable, fresh, new, invigorating than being alive. And every second is a big miracle. Every instant is a gift, and you wouldn't think, I've been alive already, 5 years or 3 years, then what's the big deal? No, you'd realize that no second depends on the second before it, and that every single instant is an amazing, how do you say, wonder, and a gift and a happiness, and the fact that you can do things, that you can get married, you can have children, everything becomes wonderful. You meet a person, you see a human being. This is so wonderful. I'm seeing a human being. The more human beings there are in the world, the better, the more life there is, and the better. Everything is an amazing miracle. And eventually that's going to be the raising of the dead. The raising of the dead is that things we'll just see the truth. We'll see how amazing and miraculous this creation is. Much, much, infinitely more amazing than heaven or the highest levels of heaven. That's the goal of Judaism, this physical world, right? But a pure world. Okay, so that's accomplished, this world, when Adam ate from the tree, and later on the Jews were given another chance when God gave the Torah, but they flubbed it. Adam ate from the tree, and the Jewish people worshiped the golden calf. So therefore, how do you say? You made your pie, you have to eat it. We are now in a world where there's death. What is the cure for this death? What's the cure for the death? Well, you might think that the cure for the death is just, get your act together. Just don't do what the Jewish people did when they worshiped the golden calf, or when just, stop being selfish. Stop being selfish. So, that's one cure. But the fact is that God made a decree, and that there's death in the world, and you can stop being selfish as much as you want to, but God decreed death. It says that there's, 9 people that they died only because of the advice that the snake gave. Etu shel nachash. Only because God declared there's going to be death. No matter what you do, there's going to be death. But you can alleviate the situation a little bit and get rid of the impurity of death. And that's the red cow. So the red cow is a hint at the, how do you say, the impermanence of death, the unreality of death, that you can get rid of it. And here we go. So it says, when the dead raise up. When the dead raise up, it's a sentence in Hosea. Kativ, it is written, Bayom Shlishi, on the third day, Yekimenu, we will raise up, they will raise up, the dead will raise up, and stand before God. Third day. Okay, this goes on the sentence that I skipped. Let's we got it. Here we got this. We got this. Now we have a pointer. I skipped. This is the title. The title of this. V'hazeh tahor al tamei, that the Kohen, the priest, has to sprinkle. Hazeh means to sprinkle. The pure one, it sprinkles on the impure one, b'yom shlishi, on the third day and on the seventh day. That's what I told you. Okay, it says by the raising of the dead that on the third day we will stand in front of you. What's the third day? What does that mean, the third day? It means like this. We say in our prayers also, the enlivening of the dead. The dead are going to come to life. Huh? It's pretty bizarre. Well, it says all the graves are going to pop up. People will pop up. When you consider the Jews have been dying since, well, let's just say since they went into Egypt. That's basically when the Jewish people began. Right? So that's about like 3,400 years ago, something like that. 3,500 years ago. But actually, you could, okay, let's say 3,400 years ago, if you count from Abraham and so that's also a few more hundred years. So let's say Jews have been dying for, 3,800 years. That's a lot of Jews. And we're counting all the Jews that died in the desert, and all the Jews that died in Egypt, and all the Jews that died in the first temple, the second temple, people that just died naturally all the time. So it says all of them are going to come popping up out of their graves. And then there's the whole thing of the reincarnations, that it could be one soul is put into a lot of different bodies, and etc. Okay, those are problems that God will solve. But nevertheless, some people say that the promise that God made to Abraham, that your children will be like the sand on the sea and the stars in the sky, that's talking about the raising of the dead. There'll be billions and billions and billions of Jews. Okay, so it's nevertheless, when the dead raise up, who it will be barachamim rabim, with great mercy. Says in the future there's going to be a tal, there's going to be some sort of spiritual dew, D-E-W. like the towel, dew falls in the morning. Dew that is going to enliven the dead. Now, this dew has been used before. It says that on Mount Sinai, when God gave the Torah, that in every word that God gave, their souls of the Jews jumped out of their bodies. There's something out of that, and God brought them back to life with this dew, towel, this dew. But this dew, this towel, is not like rain. Rain comes because of what we do. There has to be evaporation in this rain. But it says the towel, dew, comes automatically. And this spiritual dew that enlivens the dead, this is the source of what's called the 13 attributes of mercy. Remember the 13 attributes of mercy? When the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf, so God said, that's it. That's it. After all I've done for them, come on, I took them out of Egypt and I brought them, I split the sea, I gave them the Torah. They all heard me say, don't worship idols, and they all worship. I'm going to wipe them all out. So Moses said, don't wipe them out. If you wipe them out, then wipe me out also. And God said to Moses, no, you don't understand, Moshe. I'm going to make a new nation from you. And Moshe said, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't want to do it. If the only reason you're going to wipe out the Jews is because you have an option for me, then wipe me out too. Wipe me out too. So God said, okay, what do you want? So Moses said, show me a way that I can pray to you and that appeal to some aspect of yours that will forgive the Jews no matter what they do. And that's the 13 attributes of mercy. The 13 attributes of mercy, because sin is death. And the 13 attributes of mercy that counteracts death. Like it says in another mimer or another place. Tiferet. Okay, now God has a personality, right? We talked about this. God interacts with the world. God interacts with the world. God acts, God reacts to what we do. He answers our prayers. That's why we pray. So one of the aspects of God is called intellect, and the other is called emotions. There's three facets of intellect, and there's 7 facets of emotion. The third facet of emotion is called Tiferet. Tiferet. Generally speaking, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they correspond to the top 3 aspects of emotions. Abraham is love, Yitzchak is power, awe, fear, but Jacob is Tiferet. That's the middle line that's called beauty. It's also called mercy. That's the aspect of Jacob. And that's the aspect that's going to cause the raising of the dead. Jacob was the third of the fathers, number 3. Jacob, Ola Araketer. So the Tiferet, because it's in the middle, so that goes up to what's called Keter, the highest room. That's this level of mercy. That's the sod Bariach Etichon. That's the secret of the middle bolt in the tabernacle. Amavriach mina katzei ala katzei. In the tabernacle, the walls of the holy and the holy of holies, the walls, the tent of meeting, it was called, was made of boards, and the boards stood up, and there was a hole in the middle of all these boards, and one long bolt went through all of the boards. It went through this hole, right? The hole, they put the boards next to each other, the holes corresponded. There was one bolt that went from one end to the other. Some say it even turned the corners and went to the other. So that's the middle pillar. That's the middle pillar. And there were also there were also 2 other bolts on the side. One, but they were on the outside. One was on the top, one was on the bottom. Really, it's 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. In any case, the middle pillar, the middle bolt, that corresponds to Tiferet. That's number 3. It balances everything out. And that's the idea of what Hosea said in his prophecy, on the 3rd day, the dead will rise up. Why the 3rd day? In the merit of mercy, of God's mercy, and that was embodied by Jacob. Yaakov is called Yisrael. Yakimeno, that's what it means. On the 3rd day, the dead will rise up. Look what it says in the sentence in another place. Okay. That's what God said, that I will lift you up on the wings of eagles. That's a sentence, I think, in it's a sentence in the Torah. In the Torah, where is it in Shemot? I will lift you up on the wings of eagles. It's a sentence in the Chumash. Where is this? One second, give me a sentence. Yeah, it's right with the giving of the Torah, right? 1 second. Is this right? No, no, no. Anyway, that's okay. So God said, I will lift you up on the wings of eagles. Wings of eagles. What is wings of eagles? Eagles are also the number 3. How is the number 3? On the chariot that says that Ezekiel saw a vision of God's throne, God's chariot, God's throne. And on this throne, it says that around it were 4 faces. The face of an ox was on the right. The face of that was on the left. The face of a lion was on the right. The face of an eagle, that was the 3rd face, and the face of a man. So the face of the eagle, that's the 3rd. Eagle, that says, God says, I will lift you up on the wings of eagles. Eagles, that's mercy. That's the 3rd aspect of God. 3rd aspect, mercy. That's rachamim, mercy. That's number 3. To arouse mercy on the soul that comes down into the world. By means of this mercy, aviyatchem alai, I will bring you to me. How is Mashiach going to gather up all the Jewish people? It says, well, Mashiach is not going to gather the Jewish people. He's just going to cause God to gather up all the Jewish people. So God's going to somehow or other put ideas or instances in the situations where every Jew in the world is going to wake up. Every Jew in the world is going to wake up. But there's some really pretty bad Jews. I mean, there's pretty disappointing Jews in the world, right? I don't think you have to tell, this, right? Communist Jews and the weirdo Jews and the atheist Jews and anti-theist Jews and all sorts of, right, and not nice Jews and criminal Jews. Anyway, there's a cornucopia of Jews, from the good of the good to the opposite of the opposite, right? Of the good. Nevertheless, God is going to wake them all up. He's going to bring them. How is God going to overlook all the bad things that are going to do? Mercy. It says mercy. And that's the idea of the eagle, that it flies up high. This is in the end of the Torah. It's written in Hazinu. That will lift up the Jewish people on its wings. That's how God took the Jews out of Egypt. That's how he's going to gather everybody up. Okay, this seems a bit pretty fantastic, but that's Judaism. Judaism is based on miracles, right? God personally took all the Jewish people out of Egypt. It happened to be that 4/5 didn't want to leave, but if they would have wanted to leave, as God would have taken them all out. It says that's what it means, that in the future, we will live before you. What does it mean before you? In the future will be revealed the inside of what God really wants from the Jewish people. The inside, like a father and his son, right? No matter how bad his son is, as soon as the son turns back to the father and says, Dad, I'm sorry, that's it. His father forgives him. If he sees he's genuine. And if the father is normal, so God is normal, right? The Jewish people, if we're just serious, so God forgives. That's a very basic principle in Judaism. Very principle in Judaism, that the love of God for the Jews and the mercy of God for the Jews and for all mankind, for all of his creations. That's through the Jews. Al Yedei, by means of Shalamaila, Mishvira Tatikun. This is above the breaking of the vessels and fixing up the vessels and everything like that. That's things that God is going to do on his own. He's going to fix everything up so there won't be any more death. When is it going to be? Because of God's mercy. That's the 3rd day. Okay, so this is why we sprinkle the ashes of the cow, which does away with the impurity of death, at least, doesn't do away with death. This is why we do it on the 3rd day. Why 7th day? We'll see. The 3rd day, because the whole thing depends on God's mercy. Now, again, what is mercy? Mercy is a very interesting thing. Mercy is a thing which negates all negativity. And I'll give you a simple example. Let's say somebody comes up to you in the street and starts cursing at you and he spits at you and does all the things, and you get really angry. Really, and someone comes over to you and says, listen, the poor fellow, he's got a condition that he curses all the time, but he just happened to lose both of his parents in a tragic automobile accident. And the man is out of his mind. He's out of his mind. He just doesn't know what he's doing. You say, oh, wow, poor guy. So now all of a sudden he spit on you and he curses you and this, you're not mad at him anymore. It could be that you're mad in general that this thing happened to you, right? Like a person loses his glasses or something, or his computer doesn't work. So he gets all angry because he's got a bad personality. That's when you get angry. But you're not going to get angry at that person, because the person, you have mercy on him. And mercy dissipates your anger and your, how do you say, your, what is it? Vengeance. You want to take revenge? He spit on me. I'm going to get him back. All of a sudden, you realize it was not him, right? The poor person is you have to have mercy on the guy. That's what it is on the third day. That's what it says also by Abraham, that he took his son Yitzchak to sacrifice him, and said, God said, take him, and Abraham said, okay, let's go. And God made him go 3 days. On the third day, it says, Vayarat hamakom merachok, and he saw the place where he was supposed to sacrifice. He was far away. What does it mean far away? He saw the essence of God's mercy. Far away, the third day. That's like Jacob asher para et Avram. That's what I just finished telling you. It says like Jacob, that's mercy, that he redeemed Avram. Avram is love. When there's people that you cannot love them, you're supposed to love everybody. But there's some people you just can't love them. It's just impossible. This is, how can you fulfill this idea of loving them? Right? You're supposed to love everything through mercy. It's all the reasons that I have for not loving my next door neighbor, whoever it is, that he cheated me and he lies to me and everything. Why? Is because of bad things that he did. And the bad things that he did is because he was just challenged with all these bad character traits, and who knows what his youth was and all this. And he just did not use his power for good. He just couldn't. My next door neighbor that's making me all this trouble, I'm just making this up. Right? My next door neighbor is a pretty nice person, really. But I'm just to suppose my next door neighbor, that he's making me all these troubles, he's doing it because God gave him some challenges, and he gave him the ability to withstand these challenges. God doesn't use this ability. And my next door neighbor doesn't use the ability. And therefore, my next door neighbor is such a terrible person, and he lies, and he calls the police on me every night, and he this and this. Right? Why? Because he's just got problems. So that's what it means. Jacob, which is mercy, that it redeems. It takes love out of prison. All of a sudden, I'm able to love this other person. This idea that Abraham saw the mountain far away, this is merachok hasaga. It's above understanding. It makes no sense. How can God forgive everybody? Not only that, God's going to bring back the dead. I mean, the dead, that's pretty bad. I mean, the guy's dead. You know, he's not going to, that's it, right? He's finished. End of the line. Caboose, right? He's the end of the train. There's nothing after him, right? He's dead. Says, yes, that's what you think, but that's not what God thinks. God will bring all the dead back to life. In the merit of what? The dead person, he's dead. He can't say, listen, God, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. He's finished. Guy's dead. He can't do anything. Says he can't do anything, but God can. And that's the mercy that's above understanding that'll actually bring the dead back to life. I mean, even more, you can ask another question. Why do you have to come back to life for? People that are dead, they're in heaven, they're basking in the rays of God, whatever it is, and the bliss of, eternal harmony and whatever it's called, right? Why do you have to come back to live again in the world? What's he going to do? Right? What's he going to do? He missed like buying pairs of shoes, or, he wants his old Chevy, 56 Chevy back or something. Wants to come back into the world. What's there in the world that could possibly compete with the pleasures of heaven? So the answer is, you don't know. We have no idea. This world is infinitely more holy and interesting and alive than all the levels of heaven that can possibly be. The soul and the body. And that's what God is going to do. He's going to bring the soul back into the body. That's what it says and this is going to come from a level which is totally above understanding. Like it says, Amarti achachma b'irachoka mimeni. Like King Solomon said, I said I would be smart, but it is far from me. What did he said? This was said on the commandment of the Parah Aduma. Shlomo said this. King Solomon said it on the commandment of the red cow. It says that King Solomon understood everything. He understood all the demons. He understood all the upper worlds. He understood everything. Understood. He said, but was one thing he didn't understand, and that is the mystery of the red cow. How can it be that God takes away the impurity of death? If there's already death, so how can this be, taken away? Taken away. A person that doesn't deserve to be brought to life, and nevertheless you bring him to life, that goes against the whole entire system. The system is supposed to be that God made a world and that there's a system, and you go according to the system, and things okay. You go against the system, and you're like a growth that has to be removed. You're right, irreparable. So King Solomon couldn't understand how could this be red cow, and all the details have to be in it, and in the end, it takes away death. It was beyond him. Where does this come from? It says this comes from a level of godliness which is totally above, beyond even the idea, the possibility of understanding. Because all of this is drawn down by the third day. That's the level of mercy. It says it just gave a place to look for another source. Shenemar, this was said on the commandment of. I'm sorry. Here we go. That's what this commandment is very close to you, and it's not far away. What is that? That's the sentence that the Tanya is based on. It's very, very close to you. This was said on tshuva. Tshuva, return. Okay, now tshuva is something like the red cow. Tshuva is something like the red cow. What does tshuva mean? If a person sins against God, right? So, I mean, that's pretty bad. You spit in the king's face, for instance. That's awful. You spit in a normal person's face, you can make reparations, or take it to the court. You say, I'm sorry, I embarrassed you. I'll give you $1 million. So it's okay, $1 million, I'll forget about it, right? But if you spit in God's face, right? God tells you to do X and you say, I'm not going to do it. Or you say you do the opposite. God says, do Y. You say, I'm not going to do what you want, God. Or I am going to do what you forbid. I'm doing specifically against you, God. So that's it. How can you possibly get forgiveness for that? God is infinitely real. So you did a sin. You made an infinite blemish, right? Says yes, right, 100%. But you can get rid of it. What you just finished saying was infinite. It is. And how can you get rid of it? Tshuva. How does that work? I mean, tshuva, that makes no sense. How can you just finished saying that if you sin, then it's an infinite blemish? How can you get rid of it? Makes no sense. So that's exactly the point. It makes no sense. Even though that when a person does tshuva means just simply return to your true identity. I'm a creation of God, right? I'm a creation of God. That I sinned because I forgot that I'm a creation of God. I thought that I am God. How can you return? So it says, even though that when a person returns back to God, it evokes from an aspect of God what's called God's crown, Makiv Elyon, this upper level, which is very, very far. Nevertheless, it's still close. Why? Because God says, you just do your part, you return to me, and I'll lift you up on the wings of eagle. I have mercy. You arouse my mercy is above everything. And that's the whole thing of sprinkling the ashes of the red cow. You do your little thing, and I'll do something amazing. I'll take away death. Behold, afar para, the dirt, the ashes of the para. So now we've explained number 3. Why the third day? What about the 7th day? You have to sprinkle the ashes on the 3rd day. That's mercy. And the 7th day. What's the 7th day? It says that the ashes of the cow, that's also a level of tshuva. What's this level of tshuva? Returning to God. That's getting rid of the bad. Lisrof kol hirurim bishin, to get rid of all of the bad thoughts. Right? What causes us to sin? Our thoughts. All of a sudden comes into our mind, wow, I'm going to rob that bank. Wow, I'm going to blow up that, whatever it is, house. I'm going to steal that car. I'm going to do this. It's a thought comes into your mind, and you go for it. You go for it. But the whole thing comes from thought. A person who's an alcoholic gets the thought, I'm going to take a drink. The thought is like really, how do you say, the visceral thought. It really feels it in his bones, in his flesh, but still it's no more than a thought. It's just a thought. And if he can get rid of those thoughts, then he won't do any bad things anymore. The problem is it's easier said than done, right? Once you get that thought, whatever it is, the addict, the heroin addict, the gambling addict, or whatever types of addictions that you got, as soon as he gets that feeling in his mind, then that's nothing. There's nothing else. His whole body just yearns to go to the tracks and to the horses or whatever it is, and to gamble, whatever, every crazy things people do, is you just can't do it. How do you get rid of those thoughts? And it says that's tshuva. That burns up the bad thoughts. Every time he gets a bad thought, I'm going to go steal. He thinks, 1 second, what does God want? What does God want? I said, I don't care what God wants. Why did I think that thought? I don't care what God wants. That's also a thought. Let's think about what God wants. I think you have a little problem thinking about what God wants. Take a picture of a tzaddik, the Baba Sali, the Rebbe Lubavitch, or some Moshe Feinstein. Look at a holy person's face, and you'll think, well, this person was able to, to transform bad to good. He was able to, get along in life without, addictions and all this stuff. Maybe I can do it also. But the idea is getting rid of bad thoughts. So that's also one aspect of tshuva. Tshuva is not you return to God, but if you have these stupid thoughts in your mind, so you'll return to God a little and you'll do sins a little or a lot. Which is another aspect of tshuva, is to get rid of, defy all of these negative thoughts that you have. By means of this is drawn down what's called the living waters. That's the water that's that you put the ashes in. Okay, Inyan, like it says, Hazazator, like sprinkling the priest, the Kohen, he sprinkles this water with the ashes in it on the impure person. It brings the person back to life, so to speak. It takes away the death. As before that, his soul was asura b'kashura behevli olam. It was attached in the emptiness, the stupidity of this world. Nechshavas kames, he's like a dead person. Like it says, v'yitain at the Rashon Kivro, like it says that the evil people will be buried. It doesn't mean the evil people. It means the evil that's in people. Like it says, the evil people that are evil, that go against God, in their lifetime, they're already called dead. How can you bring this person back to life? By means of arousing mercy. Milamaila from above. Therefore, sprinkling is also on the third day, by means of arousing this big mercy on his soul. That's the mercy. Like it says in another place. Okay, another. What's the seventh day? This is the level of Malchut. Malchut, that's the lowest of the seven aspects of God. This is not Jacob. Jacob is mercy. Malchut, the lowest aspect, that's King David. That's humility. That's David. Ushpizin, Yaakov, it says, in the Zayin Ushpizin, it says the 7 days of the holiday of Sukkot, that every night another one of the holy fathers of Judaism come into your sukkah. So it says the first night is Abraham, then there's Yitzchak, then there's Yaakov, then there's Moshe and Aaron. Moshe and Aaron, then there's David and Shlomo. David and Shlomo. Shlomo and David. It says Yaakov is number 3, and David is the 7th. Bechina David, that's what's called Merkava, the Malchut. That's what's called God's kingship. God's kingship. That's the level of David. That's humility. We'll see. Hine Kativ, it says, Ki li b'nei Israel, li, the Jewish people, are servants. By means of Bechina servants, al yedei li mamash. This is not God's mercy. This is simply being a servant, lowering yourself down, being humble. Usually bad thoughts, the reason that a person listens to his bad thoughts that pop into your mind, your bad thoughts you can't control. You can't control, but you can defy them. You can ignore them. And by ignoring them, they come to you less and less. As soon as your evil soul, it's called the Yetzer Hora, or your animal soul, as soon as it realizes, it's like an animal, you train it. As soon as it becomes trained, right, you don't give it a prize, then it stops sending these stupid thoughts in your mind. Right? How can it be that I walk into a room and there's a bottle of vodka, whatever, sitting on the table, and I could care less? It makes no difference to me. Want to make a l'chaim? Okay, a little bit. Other people, an alcoholic goes into the room, there's a bottle of vodka, he can't think of anything else. All he thinks about is, how can I get my hands on that vodka? Well, I really want it. But people talk to him. Are you listening? Oh, yeah, I'm listening. Right? Why is it that he's all of a sudden hypnotized by this bottle of liquor that's on the table? Why is it? Because he thinks that he's God. He thinks that he's the most important person in the world, He's the most important existence in the world. And therefore, any thoughts that he has must be holy. So he listens to everything or urge, everything that. It's just, he has other urges also. He doesn't want everybody to know he's an alcoholic, but really he is. That's what he is. He says, but that's not who he is. That's not who he is. The alcoholic, he's got a problem. He's got a problem. He has a problem. Who is the he? Who is the he? It says he, a person himself, is really nothing. As a servant of God. That's what you're supposed to be. You're being created by God. You're being created by God for a purpose. You have responsibility to be nice, to be kind, to be helpful, to be productive, right? To use your potential for good in the world. That's your job in the world, to serve the Creator. Your job in the world is not to serve yourself. It's not to serve yourself. You have to be a servant of God. So that's the number 7. That's being like King David. Like it says in another place, this level of being a servant of God, this is bittul. This is total surrender and humility to God without any reason or logic whatsoever. The source of this is also tremendously high. That he draws down this level of the crown of God, which is above even Chachma and Bina, all these different levels. This is what's called Malchut of Ein Sof. In some ways, this is even higher than God's mercy. And that's the level of Li. That's taking to me. Like it says, Yichu Li. Like it says later on, it says, Arasticha Li La'olam. You will be married to me forever. God says. It's a sentence also in Isaiah, right? Isaiah. I'm trying to look these stuff. 1 second. This is on page, let me get this straight over here. Yeah. This is it. 122, which means, I'm sorry. Let's get this over here. This is Samach Aleph, right? 1 second. Samach Aleph, right. So it's Samach Aleph, Daled. Yeah. Samach Aleph, Daled. Here we go. 1 second. Excuse me, 1 second. Okay. All right. I don't know. I can't find it. Okay. I don't know why I can't find it, but I can't. Okay. Okay. I don't remember if this is in Hosea or whatever it is. All right. Okay. Anyway, that's what it says, great mercy. On the 7th day, it says another one. Yeah. Or Li mamish. You become for me. Li avodim. To me, you will be servants. So that's the number 7. That's the number 7. Okay. That's what it means. You will be my servant. You will be my, God says, you will be my wife forever. What does it mean forever? No changes. No changes. The Jewish people will realize the oneness of God. That's called life. That's called life. Like God is enlivening us all the time. It doesn't stop, doesn't get tired. So we will be servants of God and we won't get tired. But God also, the source of impurity, it comes from what's called the breaking of the vessels of the 7 kings of Tohu. Remember that we talked about that before? So it says Bela is that's the level of Dat. The 7 kings, it's mentioned, where's it? Parshas Vayishlach, I think. But Vazeo, this is also the idea of the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, of evil. Evil. That's the 7th king. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's the lowest level. That's the lowest level. And if we misuse this lowest level, we decide to be egotistical, that's another thing that brings death into the world, which is not the case. Chachma, it says Chachma, they die and not in Chachma. Chachma is called the tree of life. It was also in the garden. And how much more to the level of Keter we talked about before, where mercy comes from, that's called the source of life. This is drawn down by number 7. So number 3 is tremendous mercy. And number 7 is bittul, surrender to God, being harmonious with God, doing what we're supposed to do. This is above any understanding. That's the 7th day. So again, the 7th day that refers to the aspect of malchut. Malchut means we realize I am being created by God. I am being created by God for a purpose. How can I defy that? How can I go against, how can I use the life that God is giving me to go against God? How can I give this responsibility that God has given me to shirk my responsibility? My free choice that is a gift from God, how can I use that to, so to speak, spit in God's face? How can I do it? That's called humility. What's the opposite of humility? How can I do it? I'll show you how I can do it. I can do whatever I want. I can do what I want. What's the problem? And so that's what brings death into the world. So it says also by Yaakov, it says, Yaakov Avinu lo met. It says that in the Talmud, that it says what Yaakov, that when he died, it doesn't say that he died in the Torah. It says that he put his feet up into into the bed, and he didn't die. And the Gemara says, there's a Gemara says, what do you mean he didn't die? And Tainit, what do you mean he died? It says that he embalmed him. He was embalmed. It says that he was buried. We know where he's buried. He's buried. What does it mean? It says in the Talmud, it just seems like he died. Okay, what that means exactly is for another time, but it clearly says that he did not die. It did not die. That what we saw him is a good question. It's a good question. It's right. Did he die? Did he not die? Right? The Talmud says that he did. And others say that, ask the question. It didn't say, and the question remains unanswered. Right? Actually, it is answered. It says that it just looked like he died. What's that mean? It means that this aspect of Jacob looked like he died. It means it's implying that death itself for everybody is just what appears. It just appears to be. And that's what it says by Jacob. He blessed Paro, that from this infinite life that Jacob has, that's the Jewish people. Jacob is Israel. His name was changed Israel. As he was able to bless even Paro, all the whole world. Therefore, sprinkling to remove the impurity of death is specifically on the 3rd day, that's mercy. And on the 7th day, which that's humility. Humility, connecting to the truth. The aspect of Jacob, which is Israel, and the aspect of King David, which is Mashiach. Okay. Like we said last time, Nachash is the serpent. Nachash is the numerical value of Mashiach. To transform death into life, that's exactly the idea of Mashiach. To show how important this physical world is. To eliminate heaven totally. Showing eternal life, that's what God's intention was when he created the world. And that is accomplished with the red cow by means of our evoking God's mercy and by us being humble to God, evoking God's kingship. Okay, now let's go back. Here we go. That was pretty good.